Hello friends, Jeff here from Squadron. Welcome to our 6th chapter of the online build of the Mosquito. If you missed out on one of the previous chapters, please click on the links on your screen. If you still want to pick up a Mosquito, they're still available at our website, or click on the link. Today I hope to show you a little bit more in depth about detail painting. How to accentuate the cables, the black boxes, the seat cushions, the harness, safety belts, etc. So grab your brush and let's get going. With this kit, Tamiya supplied a little color pamphlet. It's more like a booklet. It has several pages. It will come in handy while painting the Mosquito. Now on page 10 you will find a complete full color page of Cockpit Detail. Take into account that all these pictures are coming from a restored airplane. It will give you a guide of where you can add detail, where you can paint detail, and how to go about it. So I would like to start first is by painting all the black boxes that you can find, like on the side walls. For instance, here you got the switch box on the side, the throttle quadrant, the compass. On the other side we have all the cables and the fuse boxes, some of the switch boxes. I'm gonna paint those flat black. To do this, I like to use Humbrol enamel. Humbrol enamel through the years, I'm very familiar with it. It's a very good basic coat, especially when you're hand painting. So what I'm gonna do is, if you have some stock art left and right laying around, cut a couple pieces. It's the best platform to work on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to scoop some of the thick out of the can and just place it on here. Just like that. Put that out of the way. Okay. I'm going to have some thinner. Again, the thinner I'm using is the Squadron enamel thinner. And to paint the black boxes, I use like a 00. You can either go to a 0 or a number 1, but for this purpose and this occasion, I'm using the 00. The reason I put it on a paper, I don't like to dip my brush in the can. By scooping the thick from the bottom of the can, it will give me a flat finish. When it dries up, I'm almost convinced that it's going to dry up flat. Also, I like to make it as liquid as possible, and sometimes I have to do one or more layers on it. And as you can see, even if the color, the black paint, doesn't really cover it 100%, it's not all that bad, because that will give it like a worn look or a patina look. As long as you do most of it in black, it's not a bad thing if the green shows a little through. So when it dries up, it will dry up realistically. Same thing here with the throttle quadrant and the switch boxes, fuse boxes, compass. Just let the black flow in there, make it extra thin. You can always go back over it once you get the first layer taken care of. Okay, sometimes when your paint, when you make it a little bit too thin and you have some spillage, don't worry about it. You can always blend it in, and it actually will help you in shadowing or creating a shadow effect. Get some more boxes here. Take your time. There's no reason to rush it. After all the work you put in, you want to make sure that your painting job is equal to your detail. For bigger areas, you can use a bigger brush, like in this case it's a number 3. So for the facing of the instrument panel and the backdrop of the instrument panel, the back panel, you can use a bigger brush. Again, make your paint thin. Do not try to cover everything perfectly and let some of the bottom color come through. It will give you the perfect shadow effect, weathering effect. Your panel will look a little bit worn, and it will make the weathering step a little easier when you already got some contrast in there. Once everything is dry, you can decide if you want to give it a second coat or if you're happy with what you just did. Personally, I like that the bottom color shines a little through the black color. So don't forget the photo etch facings, the instrument facings. You can airbrush those, but since I got the black paint here, I'm painting it, so it should be sufficient just to give it a very light layer. Again, don't be afraid that some of the bottom color will come through. It will only help you in getting the effect. Switch panel here. We let all the black drying. Meanwhile, painting the black boxes and cables, it goes through the whole process of painting the cockpit. It's basically the same routine you go through, and then you let that dry. Later on we'll come back and we'll highlight everything, or especially with the instrument panel here. You can see there's a lot of glossy spots there, so I would like to completely dry, and then we apply the decals for the instrument facings, and then eventually the photo etch. After that we'll highlight everything and make everything look like it's been worn. Meanwhile, let's concentrate on another part of the cockpit, which are the seats. Now the seats are very important. They're the eye catchers of the cockpit. Try not to rush painting them, especially with the belts. The safety belts are always a little tricky to paint, but there are a few tricks that you can make it really realistic. As I mentioned before, these belts were made out of milliput, and I added some photo etch on it for the hardware, but everything is made out of milliput. When we airbrushed the cockpit, we applied the dark greenish color, and over that here, especially on the seat cushions, I just gently airbrushed a dark coat of like a chocolate brown. First of all, we're gonna work on the seat belts. Seat belts, it's up to the modeler. There are many ways to paint those things, and there are also lots of colors that you can use, but to me, in this case, a light tan, like a khaki, would be the correct color to do these. So I like to start out with, again, the Humbrol. Usually, mainly, for most of the seat belts that I do, and especially in World War II airplanes, I use the Humbrol Matte 72. It's like a khaki drill, they call it. Whenever you add a color to it, either it's black or to darken it, or you add a white afterwards to get the highlights, it always seems that it's the correct shade to do this. So let's start with the Navigator Seat. Let me show you what I'm trying to explain here. So first of all, since everything is covered in this chocolate brown, the first thing I would like to do is to add the Matte 72 of Humbrol and add a little black to it, so it becomes really a darkish, khaki, grayish color. And that is a good base coat or a ground layer to do your further highlighting. Again, the same thing, I like to scoop out a little bit from the bottom. And since I already had a little bit of black on my card here, just gonna mix the two. It's about a 50-50 mix, and then I'm just gonna paint the whole seat belt. Again, the trick is to use a lot of thinner, so you get a good flow and an equal flow on the base coat. If you spill a little, if you get off the contours of the seat belt, don't worry about it. You can always paint those over, or whenever you apply another little wash, it will all go away. After that, you put it away for a couple minutes, so the bottom layer, the dark, your base coat can dry. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is to highlight the seat belts. As you well know, we darkened it. I used Humbrol 72 and I added some black to it, and I painted the base coat of the seat belts in a mix of 50% Humbrol 72 khaki drill and 50% black. So once that's dry, we're going to start highlighting the belts. Let's take a brush. In this case, it's a 00. 10 will work, 2 zeros will work, 3, maybe even a number 1 will work, but I prefer for this job a 00. Scoop some of the thick of the bottom. Put it on a piece of card. Same thing with the white. Don't have to be much, just a little. Okay. Again, we have our cup of thinner, enamel thinner. And now we're just gonna highlight. We're gonna go over the webbing and the seat harnesses. We'll make it lighter and create more depth every time. So first I'm gonna do a plain khaki drill. Afterwards I'm gonna add some layers with khaki drill mixed with white to make it light and to get like a depth effect. Just make it as moist as, keep your brush as moist as you can. The idea is that you make it very, very thin so the paint really lets some of the base coat through. So you get already a see-through effect. As you can see, I really keep my paint very thin and let it flow in there. Instead of painting it, I let it creep all over the place. Again, if you spill some on the sides, don't worry about it. I'll show you a trick to clean it up without making a mess. I don't know if you can see it here, but you already created, we already created a little effect. You know, it's not plain khaki drill you see, you already see the base coat coming through, and that's because I kept my paint very, very thin. The next layer, I'm gonna add some white to the mix. And again, I'm doing this while everything is still reasonably wet, and just let the paint flow. And the true effect you will see once the paint is dry, it will dry up in such a manner that you really get already a shadow in every crease or pleat of the seat belts. That's what you really want to accomplish, that you get some color nuances. Again, don't be afraid if you spill something, it's not the end of the world. You later will correct that when we apply some more shadow with the oil paint. I'm gonna add a little raw umber just to get some extra shades here and there, not too much, just very slightly touching up here and there. And if you spilled some paint on the sides, you technically go next to it and do a few streaks with the raw umber, and it will all be cleaned up. And at the same time, you put like a layer of like a shade, and at the same time you clean up all your mistakes or little spills. Little spills you made. And it's also a question of trial and error. The whole principle is not all that difficult. It's just to manipulate the thinner and the mix. Again, the good thing is when you keep your paint really moist while you paint, there is a lot you can do or correct at the same time. Your base coat has to be absolutely dry because you don't want to get through your base coat. But once you start highlighting, you keep painting, you keep adding either light or dark till you're satisfied. As long as your base coat is absolutely dry, you're in good shape. It is also necessary to go around the edges of the seat belts with the raw umber because it will give you a shadow effect. It will accentuate actually the seat belts even more. When you're happy with the result as far as the highlighting of the seat belts, then you should try to blend in some oil paint, especially some raw umber, especially around the buckles, where you make it like a contrast, where you can actually really see the contours of the buckle, and that also will add to the whole effect of the seat belt. Again, don't feel bad or uncomfortable when you make a mistake. It all can be corrected. There are also all kind of washes out there. Vallejo has several types of washes, but I still like it the old-fashioned way with the raw umber. And when everything is wet, you can still blend, even if you overuse the raw umber and it's a little bit too much, or it's too dark, or you have a sharp edge. You just use some of your enamel, the number 72 with white, and you just blend it in. Keep blending. While I'm doing this, I just noticed that I forgot some, like a wash on the side behind the seat, so and there you have it. For comparison, I will show you the main seat I did, which is completely finished. In next chapter, I will explain a little bit more about how to paint the buckles and all, but this is basically the effect you're getting if you apply this method. Again, there are other washes out there, there's other methods out there. You can even replace these belts. I made mine out of milliput, but I think Edward and some other companies, they sell them. You already have the effect of the webbing. Like I said, I still like to do it the old-fashioned way, and to me it works. Once the cockpit is installed and everything is in place, it will look really, really realistic. We're ready for the next chapter. I will talk a little bit more in detail about how to apply the buckles by itself. It's a little trick to make it look realistic. For now, just put it away, let it dry. We'll come back to this. So guys, hopefully you learned something, or I was able to teach you something. We finally came to a point where we can close the fuselage. So Next time, when we come back in Chapter 7, we'll continue with the build. Again, if I wasn't clear of something, I forgot something, or you have a question, click on our link to our help desk, send me a note, and I will respond as soon as I can. Until then, Mk.VI here, signing off.